Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to be here to present to you the work we did on the flexibility tracker for the country analysis of Italy. Quick introduction, my name is Farid Komati and I've been working at Ecofis for the past 3 years in power system flexibility and the transition to smart grids. So our webinar today will tackle these three questions that you can read here. The first two questions, I will not tackle the first question, which has already been presented in our previous webinar on Denmark, so please refer to that presentation. I will present briefly what is the flexibility tracker and what flexibility metrics we are measuring, and I will dive straight into the analysis of Italy, so what are the strengths and weaknesses of the Italian power system in integrating more shares of renewable energy compared to its European neighbors. So the flexibility tracker is a methodology that we, with the European, in cooperation with the European Copper Institute, have developed in the past 2 years. It's a top-down key performance indicator approach that ensures a holistic yet a concise assessment of how ready a power system is to integrate more renewable energy. So we're looking at these 5 categorization of flexibility metrics in a power system. We have 3 flexibility providers, supply, demand, and storage. And we have 2 flexibility enablers, the grid and the market. This separation means that the enablers, the grid and the market, enables a country to access the providers of another country. And there we have subcategorized each category in different flexibility KPIs. We found 14 that are relevant. And we go through 80 standardized questions that we answer via a literature survey or via expert interviews with local experts in each country that we contact. And there you can read these 14 flexibility KPIs that I would present at a later stage, where how Italy rates according to each flexibility metric. And we have developed a grading that's basically red, yellow, and green, which indicate how ready Italy is. So let's look now at the situation of Italy, the integration of renewable energy, and the past developments the last 10 years. So Italy has really experienced a very fast energy transition, and it really faced considerable flexibility issues in these last 10 years. So I would like to present to you here the yearly additions of variable renewable energy in Italy. And striking, of course, is this exponential growth rate before 2011. And the real drivers of this growth rates are the very high incentives of feed-in tariffs that were existing. We're talking about 50 cents per kilowatt hour for a PV installation that's less than 3 kilowatt over 20 years. So there was a lot of investments. In 2011, Italy became the world #1 PV installer. And after 2011, there was a change in feed-in tariff policy, which obviously ended in a decrease in investments. Yet in 2014, Italy was able to achieve its 2020 National Renewable Energy Action target of 20% renewable energy in the system. So we see that in these 10 years there was a significant increase in renewable energy and the electricity consumption. Yet not all this energy was integrated in the grid, so there was inefficiencies in the system. So there was 10% that was curtailed in 2009 and 5% in 2010. So if we look in more detail into other challenges, then other symptoms of inflexibility. Let's look at the distribution and the transmission grid operator. The distribution grid operator was experiencing increasing reverse power flows. So for those who don't know, reverse power flows is when electricity is flowing back from demand up to the grid in the transmission system. And this is absolutely the last thing the DSO wants to see because it deteriorates its assets and therefore it increases its cost. For the transmission grid operator, well, Italy is known for its 2003 blackout, which indicated that its grid is really weak. After one simple fault, there was a blackout, and therefore there was a real need to strengthen the transmission grid from south to north. There's a lack of capacity there, as well as a lack of capacity with its neighbors. So the picture you see is the reinforcement plan in the next 5 years. There's a reinforcement in the middle, there's a reinforcement in the north with its neighbors, and they want to connect with HVDC cables the islands that are connected, that are close to Italy, as well as connecting to Tunisia to import solar power. So these are the challenges of the grid operators. And the question that we asked ourselves, okay, so in 2016, how ready is now Italy to have more renewable energy? And therefore, we came with the flexibility tracker analysis. So what did we find out? We actually found that the power system in Italy is in a medium ready stage, which is a good message. So we found that Italy is a European leader in supply flexibility, in energy efficiency, and large-scale and small-scale storage, but is really lacking behind in demand flexibility and upgrading its market rules. So the first graph you see on the top is the prime scenario, which forecasts a business-as-usual renewable energy shares in the Italian system. And it's already obvious from it that it's outdated because in 2015, Italy already reached its 2020. And now if we look at the flexibility metrics, how ready they are to integrate more renewable energy. So the supply side, as I mentioned, is very flexible, that thanks to the 75% gas-fired power plants. There's a plan to also decommission inflexible power plants in Italy, and there's now a new metering scheme to incentivize variable renewable energy to react to price signals. As mentioned, the demand is inflexible in Italy. It doesn't take part into the balancing market, so there's a lot of potential that is not being exploited in Italy. The grid part, there's good initiatives taken by the TSO and DSO in increasing the monitoring and control of the network, and there's a high interconnection capacity that are planned in the next 5 years. For storage, the DSO have really taken the lead in 6 pilot projects that have been running since 2013, and they have proved that batteries are economically feasible so far in Italy for specific grid situation. So it is planning to install in the next 5 to 10 years up to 44 energy storage systems. Italy is also known to be the battery of Europe in terms of pump storage capacity. So there's also a good readiness in terms of storage. Markets, there's a lack of a harmonization between the operational period lengths of the wholesale and the balancing market. By that I mean that in other countries they have shorter operation period lengths, which is better to cope with the variability of renewable energy. So there's improvements needed. So in the next 2 slides, I would like to highlight two specificities of the Italian power system that we found interesting to talk about today. The first one is what we call the Italian paradox. There's a high penetration of controllable loads in Italy, but there is no access to demand response yet. On the left side, you see the penetration of heat pumps in EU countries, the average penetration of heat pumps in EU. And Italy is ranking 4 around all the countries with 7.5 gigawatts. Now, if you combine this with stringent thermal insulation of buildings in Italy, you can have a higher flex efficiency potential. This flex efficiency potential is triggered if you can aggregate heat pumps and provide demand response services to the DSO in order to reduce grid reinforcement. And why I talk about flex efficiency, because basically a building which has a higher insulation coefficient, you can turn off the heat pump for a longer amount of time. And this has an impact on the operation of the grid and the grid investments. In a study that we did 2 years ago, we found that on an EU level, if we push for EU efficient buildings and heat pumps, and we trigger this demand response, then we can have savings up to 150 billion euro. So there's a potential for Italy to get better there. The second highlight that we found interesting is that the grid operators and utilities received a green light from their regulator to invest in batteries to cope with imbalances. Actually, the winter package of the European Commission does not allow DSO to invest in batteries, only if the regular authority proves that there's a case for that. So in Italy, there you see the 27 batteries that are in operations and the different capacities that are deployed. It's the second biggest battery market in EU after Germany. There's 15 batteries owned by the transmission grid operator Terna. And batteries are now being used in Italy for frequency regulation, renewable energy supply backup, voltage control, synthetic inertia, power quality, and anti-aliasing. And so far, the value has proven that batteries will defer grid investments, they will reduce reinforcement costs, they will reduce redispatch, they will avoid generation connection delays because of this very fast commission time. They only need less than a year compared to building a new line. So the business case of batteries in Italy is different than in other EU countries and is more interesting. Now I would like to compare Italy to its neighbors using our flexibility tracker analysis. So in red you see Italy, and you see the neighbors that are doing better in some indicators and doing worse in some others. Striking is of course Denmark. Denmark is doing the best in terms of flexibility and transitioning towards a higher renewable energy supply. Italy has specific strengths and weaknesses. So the strengths of Italy are in the conventional generation supply fleet, the energy efficiency, so it's leader, and the retail markets because it's allowing dynamic price to be implemented on a retail level. And other strengths are the storage capacities of Italy, as mentioned, and the distribution grid that are now getting more controlled by the operator with smart sensors. The common challenges where we see Italy can learn from its neighbors, it's in the power market. The design rules can be improved, and it is really important to change the regulation regarding including demand response services in the balancing market. So the recommendations we came for Italy are on a short and mid-term and long-term. On the short term, we think that encouraging variable renewable energy supply to provide grid services is very important. There must be more eye to large-scale demand response. And the sector coupling should start to be should start to be more investigated in Italy. Example of energy efficient buildings with heat pumps or electric vehicles. On the midterm, we recommend Italy to look further than 2025-2030 in implementing interconnection ambitions. And all flexibility actors should have access to the market. That includes demand response and the supply and variable and renewable energy supply. And on the long term, it must be ensured, there must be a new methodology must be developed to ensure adequate resource under low renewable energy supply without oversizing the system. There must be a maximum use of end-use flexibility options. So already opening dynamic prices for the retail market is a good sign. And finally, regarding the power market, all processes should be optimized to fully integrate renewable energy systems. So short time spans, short gate closure times, and labs. And finally, I would like to thank you for your attention. And if you have any question, please feel free to ask us.